Hi, I'm Shaun Bunn. I'm the Managing Director of Empire Metals. I'm here today to talk about the Pitfield Giant Titanium Project.
Good to see you, Shaun. Thanks for joining us. It's a bit late there in Oz, but a bit of news out from you. You've delivered on the scale front with regards to your project, it seems.
Yeah, extraordinary results, I guess. Maybe a bit hard to fathom in some people's mind, but what we put out this morning was an announcement that said we had close to roughly 30 billion tonnes at 4.5 to 5% TiO2. It's an extraordinary outcome, and that represents probably about just under 20% of the entire mineral system we've got. So, arguably much more to come.
Okay, which is fantastic. So in terms of the grade and the scale, I want to kind of get into trying to understand and put some economics around this. I know it's a bit early days, but some of the things that you've done and some things that you've got might allow me to go into some math there. But first of all, given that you've announced this kind of big scale here, does that mean no more work needed on the ground? You just deal with what you got. You talked about it being only 20%, but it seems enough.
There is more work on the ground. I don't necessarily think we're going to go out and extend the search radius beyond the current targets at the moment. I think one of the things we have to come back to, and we announced this last week, so in the process of looking at the mineralogy and the development of the ore, how we are approaching this, we found that we had this weathered cap, strongly weathered cap across the entire ore body that now down to 30, 40 metres is enriched in titanium dioxide minerals. Rutile, anatase, these are highly valued titanium dioxide minerals, generally run about 95% or better TiO2 naturally. And these are these are scarce. Look around the world. There's Sierra Rutile, Sovereign have come out recently and announced their discovery, pitching the fact that they're a unique, new supply. But the reality is we've just found an incredibly large. We've got 4.5 billion tonnes of this surface material just sitting on this. On these two exploration target areas.
So let's just try and help people understand and quantify or qualify what that means. So what is that in the context of the total demand numbers and supply numbers at the moment in the world?
Yeah, well, exploration targets are by their nature, they have potential to become resources reserves. So that's the focus. I mean, they're not there yet. That's purely due to a lack of drilling density. It's not because they're imagined. So I just want to point out here that, Snowden Optera, one of the leading, mineral resource, consultancies here in Perth, pulled together the QA/QC for us. They built the geological models upon which the estimate is made. So we're really confident of the numbers. What we want to go back to is say, look, the total number represents 1.5 billion tonnes of contained TiO2. And the world consumes about 10 million tonnes of TiO2 every year. So, put it in perspective, we've got 150 years of supply to the entire world just sitting at this current exploration target. As I said, I'm personally trying to get my head around what that might mean. But I think our focus must be, and clearly must be, what's the economic value of this now? How do we extract the titanium? What are we going to do to bring this into commercialize this process and get some real value here at Pitfield? And so obviously I'm going to focus on that weathered cap where the natural titanium dioxide minerals are sitting there, focus on how they get separated, produce a product that we can then take to a final titanium pigment type production.
Okay, so again, just to simplify it here, okay, because I think you said that, it's an interesting phrase. You say, you figure out what it's worth today. It's kind of also figuring out what it's worth tomorrow, because if there's an oversupply in the market, that usually has a knock-on effect where margins become important. So if I may just kind of go through some of the terminology I've heard in the last a couple of minutes from you. Let's go back to the weathered phrase. Weathered, that means oxidized. Is that oxidized?
Yeah.
You're talking about, so therefore it suggests that there's some savings to be made in terms of the processing at the other end.
Absolutely. Most people would understand Australia's, it's an old continent. It's gone through a lot of, natural weathering over the millennia. So what we see at surface is a simple. I'll step back again. We announced a few months back in March that we had discovered a incredibly, an unusual, if you like, mineral assemblage, which was predominantly titanite, which is a titanium calcium silicate. It's extremely unusual to find it in great quantity. So we had 20% of the ore. It weathers by nature. Mother Nature basically converts titanite to anatase and rutile. So near surface, that's what's happened. And, people who think that titanite might be difficult to process, well, clearly it isn't. And, we're really focused now on pulling out a processing route that not only deals with that upper zone, but also attracts, we can process the titanite through a similar processing step. So we're not sensitized to whichever mineral we get. Titanium-bearing minerals don't worry us. We're going to go through and get to a final TiO2 pigment type product.
Okay. I'll come back to that. So far you got a lot of it. You got a sort of soft rock titanite, oxidized, which suggests, some benefits when you kind of get through to the kind of processing side of things. I want to go to the grade side of things. You talk about high grade. Is it significantly higher than global average at the moment, or what do you mean by high grade?
Pretty well every mineral sand deposit. If you look at all the rutile deposits, generally they are running maybe 1%. For instance, there are quoted figures, 1% rutile. Rutile, say 95% TiO2. So you haven't even quite got 1% TiO2. We've put out a target that's between 4.5 and 5.5. 5 times better than the average grade. Extraordinary, And this is in the upper weathered zone. So people who say, "Oh, well, you got to drill and blast, and it's hard mining and all that." Rubbish. This is soil. This is friable saprolites. It'll be free digging. It'll be easy to process. And down to 40 meters or so is where we've measured the weathering zone, possibly deeper. So, high grade, soft rock, high value mineral. One thing that I just can't promise anybody at the moment, and I'm going to be honest about this, is it is a unique geochemical occurrence. We've got titanite, we've got other minerals that are formed. So we have to do the science. We have to do the work to understand how to extract that and bring that into a final product. But once we do, this thing is incredibly, this is a fully integrated mine to final product processing option that we're looking at. No concentrates, no intermediates, no shipping something that's a third of the real value across the oceans. We're going to make the final product at site.
Okay, so to do that, you're going to need to make assumptions about the pricing in the market, and clearly you'll understand, therefore, the margins that you're able to make to be able to get the kind of financing in place to do that, right? So this whole kind of skip the intermediate stage and go through beneficiation, leach, whatever that metallurgical process needs to look like. You're going to have to do this quickly, because it kind of feels like there's there's a few conversations going on in the market, where these are big projects out there, and flooding the market is never kind of good for margins generally. So in terms of how do you go from where you are today, an accelerated process in an aggressive, ambitious way to get this thing built and with contracts in place? So I know we're making a big leap here. You've just announced a discovery, but from what you're saying, these are things that must be in the back of your mind, because it feels like you've got to know that there's a market for the product at the end of this. So where where do you go from here?
It's actually right in the front of our mind, I think, to be honest. I mean, we've got to have a very clear idea of what it is that we're going to, be able to make and where that sits in terms of the value, the supply chain, the demand. One of the really important factors about the titanium industry is the chloride producers who make the high-grade titanium pigments. They require feedstock like synthetic rutile, 80-90% TiO2. They require rutile itself. They require really high-grade ilmenites. These are scarce, and they're becoming scarcer. So these guys need high-value feedstock. Pitfield is the answer. I mean, we are focused on making that type of material out of this particular mix of non-refractory ilmenite ores. So we fill a niche. We actually come into the market filling, providing these guys with low cost, low energy consuming products. Our feedstocks don't require, synthetic rutile requires a lot of energy to convert it to convert ilmenite to rutile. They burn coal. The CO2 footprint is enormous. So we're avoiding all of that. The hard rock miners have to go through smelting. They have a furnace and smelt their products to produce a high grade value product. We're not in that pathway. So unique opportunity for us to come into the market over the next few years, high value, low cost, low energy, low CO2 footprint products, and in a jurisdiction, let's face it, we couldn't be better placed anywhere in the world. We're 150 k's from a port, connected by rail, have power, water, accommodation. There are communities around us. We're working in a fantastic area of Australia. This thing, the planets, if you like, the planets have aligned in this one. We are been very fortunate.
Okay, so do you think that this is where the West has to go? Because we've talked a lot about other metals out there where they look to a kind of bifurcated market in the sense that bifurcated because the metals need their kind of green credentials, and bifurcated in the sense that there's some adversarial type commentary around East versus West when it comes to some of these metals. There's a sort of slight anti-China rhetoric coming out of North America, etc., and certainly from the funders where they feel that if companies are inserting themselves into any part of the China food chain, that they will not make funding available to some of these companies. So it feels kind of adversarial to me anyway. With that in mind, do you feel that clearly you feel the green credentials are really, really strong? Do you feel you need to do further work in terms of high grading this to kind of increase the margin? Where are you going to see additional benefits and need for additional spend? Given you kind of got the arbitrage to perhaps we need to get into the market quicker, or perhaps we need to be a first mover in terms of the West, in terms of this higher quality product which we can produce ourselves. I mean, again, you may or may not be looking at that yet, but I'd be interested if you are.
Well, certainly this new discovery, the weathered cap, the fact that it's already a TiO2 mineral. So the focus across the entire ore body is how do we separate the value minerals from the gang, from the silicates, from the other material that we don't want. So that is fundamental to this project, regardless of whether it's rutile, anatase, or titanite that we're looking to separate. First point. That's where our focus and energy is now being channeled. The important thing about that is all the gang materials are very different to titanium-bearing minerals. We have quartz and silicates that have low SG, have completely different geophysical and chemical processing characteristics. So we're confident that we will find a processing route to concentrate up the titanium-bearing mineral. once we're there, as I said, we're not going to try and sell a concentrate. We're going to take that concentrate right through to final product. That's where the economics have to be carefully assessed. Where do you get your acids from? Where do you get your energy from? Where do you get your workforce from? All these fundamentals that really affect some company that might be sitting in East Africa or parts of the Eastern Europe now, which are let's face it, Ukraine, for instance. And I don't want to go down this path, make it a geopolitical statement, but they're not going to be making a lot of titanium in the near future whilst they're in the situation they are. So where would you rather be if you wanted to have a low cost, very stable supplier who, as I mentioned right up front, in principle, we can supply the entire world for at least 150 million years. I mean, that's ridiculous. People don't, companies don't even project out that far, and yet we've got a resource that we can do so. So we're offering a package here, an opportunity here, I think, for investors and for others to come in and join us on this journey. This is a disruptor. This is the game changer for the titanium industry, and then going forward.
No, I hear you. I guess what I'm trying to get at is you've got to make a decision about which market. I think you're clear about the product, and then obviously you've got to kind of find the market for that, get the contracts in place. Agree the pricing mechanisms that you'll need there, and then utilize those to kind of get the funding to do all of this kind of front end, capex that you will inevitably need to do. Assuming the network will kind of pans out, etc., and do that, I guess, expeditiously before someone else comes along, because it's a massive. Next 150 years worth of supply, which is fantastic. But if there are others, people who've already kind of got these routes to market, got contracts in place, then it's a bit hard to kind of, I guess, sell all of your wares. So I guess what I'm focused on is it's super early days. I get it, but you're already thinking about the choices that you can have, which is great. But you got to move quickly, I suspect, and frame this in a way that the market and the financiers understand, so they can get the financing in place to actually, get out there and sell your wares. So, have you got the right people on board? For instance, let's start with that one. Have you got the right people on board to help you with that process?
Yeah, well, let's start there. Well, there are two aspects right now. Is one, and we released our final results only, I think, yesterday morning. We had £3.4 million still in the bank at the end of that period. So we're not sort of sitting there shaking. Now, this is not a rattle the can exercise for us. We're fully funded right through to the end of this next phase. The people are definitely on board. We've recruited exceptionally well in the last few months, bringing on some real talent. We've got access to titanium industry, icons, if you like. In terms of Dr. Trevor Nicholson, he's worked in the industry for nearly 40 years. Eugene Dodengo, who is a mineral processing guru, if you like, he's worked his entire life at the front end. Narelle Marriott, exceptional, hire, that one. I really think that she's going to make a huge difference to us developing the processing route. One of the things that we're now doing is we're working with the federal government's research agency. So with what they call the Commonwealth Scientific Industrial Research Organisation, CSIRO, they've worked in this titanium focus industry for many years. And so these are leading scientists who are sitting there going, we've never seen anything like this. We want to work on this. We've got Curtin University. Several of the professors, postdocs have all come to us and said, hey, we want to study this project because nobody's seen anything like this in their lifetime. So you asked me, have I got the technical ability to deliver this project? Absolutely. There are a few gaps in the team, to be honest. We got to think about marketing. We've just brought in a consultant, a really great guy who's going to be helping us map the pathway to production and who we want to sell to. And we're going to need to continue to add to the team. Matthew, for a while there, I felt like I was the proverbial, one-man band. Had a drum back to me thing, belting away, cymbals on me knees, clugging away. So I'm really feel that we've, as a company, have grown in the last 12 months. We've got focus. We have, clearly the most extraordinary titanium deposit in the world. And, we are going, we're coming with a rush, if you like.
Good. Good. You also, so team tick. Lots of ticks the whole way along this conversation, for sure. Coming back to this timing thing, say, first, what it kind of feels like to me is like that's the kind of conversation narrative I'd like to understand from you over the next 12 months. So you've talked about some of the materials which you've got out there about, second half, demonstration plant, etc. So there's a sort of end point here, but you've also talked about the need for some infill drilling, etc. So that's what I mean about earlier when I talked about, is there more to do on the ground? Given the scale of this, have you thought about maybe different types of models available to you? Because you don't need to get the whole thing going. You just need to kind of start. You need to show a route to market. So to that end, do you think you can advance the timing of this, or do you think that second half of next year is perfectly reasonable for a demonstration plant?
Look, I think there are several tasks that are going to be running in parallel. So one of the things we can accelerate now with great confidence is to move to a mineral resource statement, a JORC compliant mineral resource. I think people will feel more comfortable when we can announce that. And the other thing about that is it means we can directly compare Pitfield against the other projects in the world. I'm not singling out any project in terms of our exploration targets saying, oh, look how we compare. What I can say, as I said, we can supply the entire world for 150 years. That's fact. The other interesting thing I looked at was if you took the top 10 countries in terms of their titanium reserves in the world, as published by the United States Geological Survey, and you added them all together, they're not as big as Pitfield, which is bizarre. I mean, that in itself is ridiculous. We're not comparing ourselves to another mine. I can compare this thing in terms of scale to the combined reserves of the top 10 producing countries in the world. So scale is becoming irrelevant in my mind. What we're going to focus on, as we said early in the piece, is getting as fast as we can down the track, accelerate our development plans, get the mineral resource statements out, get to the point where we can lay out a processing flow sheet. Hopefully then the research groups can sit there and go, right, okay, now we can actually work we can do our own cost analysis on this and show the world that we can produce, a final product from a fully integrated Pitfield project, and here we are. I don't need to worry about then anyone else coming in. I don't need another partner at that point, to be honest. We've done the work. So next 6 to 12 months, we're going to keep putting setting the bar higher and higher, and we're going to keep delivering on those promises.
Okay, so a lot of things in your control. One of the things which perhaps not so much for most people is around licensing and permitting. Is that process, when does that start? What's it involve? How long does it normally take?
The good thing about working in the Australian industry is that it is very regulated and the processes are pretty well mapped out. You're not sort of discovering. It's not a journey in the discovery process. You just go about your work and you deliver the report surveys and you do the science again. We've just taken on an environmental manager, Carrie Pritchard, incredibly experienced. She's worked for Newmont, she's worked for Newcrest, We've had her up on site in the last few days, actually, talking to the landowners, to the region. So we're starting that process now of understanding who do we impact. It's not about environment, social. It's who do we impact either positively or negatively? How do you mitigate that, and how do you move through the approval process? So I've done this many times myself. I know how to go about this. One of the most important fundamental things is your license to operate. It's not given to you by government. It's not given to you by, the funders, the banks. It's given to you by the community, the people. So we're foremost in our minds is how we relate to the people, how we relate to the environment. And, we've started that process, Matthew.
You have indeed. And ultimately, I think the key thing for all of these things is having made a discovery, getting yourself a maiden resource, and then demonstrating the economics. But what a start! What a 12 months for you.
Gosh,
Sean,
tell me about it.
Good to see you.
I used
Good to see you.
it.
I know. Now you take all of those tambourines and bells off and stop making tea for people. You've got a team as well. Okay, brilliant update on that one. I do appreciate that. What do you expect from you next?
Look, we've got a bit of a roadshow, non-fundraising roadshow, to be honest. We're just going out and make sure people understand, if you like, what we're doing. And, these interviews are great. RNSs are fine. But, until you get in front of the groups, at the one-to-ones, the talks, people start to really understand what we're sitting on here at Pitfield. So looking forward to that. I'll be on the road for a few weeks. But in terms of news flow, I'm really focused now on getting some more information about the minerals, the mineralogy, and the processing. I think that's what ultimately people are going to come back to and say, right, well, until we know more about that, we don't understand the value of this giant. So everything's going towards unraveling that bit of the puzzle.
Well, we look forward to hearing about it more. So, Sean, appreciate your time today. Speak soon.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoyed it.